sphere. In China, they were trialling a thing where they had the children wearing headbands so they could see how much they were concentrating. And there's all kinds of technological revolutions that you could use to, but that basically involves us giving up masses of data for AI to work properly. And I noticed you talked about the sort of biometric ID cards for. Does there need to be a sort of shift in our attitude to ourselves and privacy and civil liberties?
I don't think a fundamental one. I mean, look, it all depends. I mean, what you described in China, well, it wouldn't have suited me as a kid to live that.
Even they gave it up in China, actually, because the parents protested.
Right. So you need discernment. I mean, the whole point about technology is value-free, but the use to which you put it, obviously, you apply your values to it. And this is why I don't find it as difficult as other people do. For biometric ID, countries around the world will move to this because it enables the citizen. Some countries, India, for example, has used it to cut out a lot of corruption. If you're able to use your biometric ID to do lots of interaction with government that you can do online without a big problem or hassle, it's a good thing. And the amount of information the government will have on you, this is why the privacy argument to me is sort of weird. I mean, it's much less than your local supermarket's got. So I don't, but it needs to be explained to people. And that's a classic example, by the way, of how ideology gets in the way. And this is the problem, because the truth is there's a part of the Conservative Party that have, for whatever reason, taken this up as a civil liberties issue, a part of the left that also does that, when really it's just about using technology to enable you to do things more easily.
But you have to also have a different attitude to data and privacy, because I think, just on the education sphere, in China they were trialling a thing where they had the children wearing headbands so they could see how much they were concentrating. And there's all kinds of technological revolutions that you could use to, but that basically involves us giving up masses of data for AI to work properly. And I noticed you talked about the sort of biometric ID cards for. Does there need to be a sort of shift in our attitude to ourselves and privacy and civil liberties?
I don't think a fundamental one. I mean, look, it all.
I think it's very much part of my own integrity to have myself chipped and keep my personal data there with me. I actually feel in a way that it's even more controlled on my end, having it in my own hand.
So I have a chip implant in my arm, and I have programmed the chip so that I have my COVID passport and on the chip. And the reason is that I always want to have it accessible. And when I read my chip, I just swipe my phone on the chip, and then I unlock, and it opens up. This is a PDF, which is my COVID passport. And this means that it's always accessible for me, or for anyone else really who wants to read me. For example, if I go to the movies or go to a shopping center, then people will be able to check my status, even if I don't have my phone. A chip implant costs, 100 euros if you want to buy them, the more advanced versions. And you can compare this with, for example, a health wearable that will cost perhaps twice that, but at the same time a chip implant you can use for 20, 30, 40 years, whereas a wearable you can only use for 3-4 years. So. If you understand how these implants work, they don't have a battery. They cannot transmit a signal by themselves, so they're basically passive. They're asleep, right? They can never tell your location. They're only activated when you touch them with your smartphone. So this means that they cannot be used for tracking anyone's location. And what matters to me is that the people who get chip implants, they do so because they are, on a volunteer basis, and because they're curious and they want to work with this technology.